Mike introduce his panel. Mike.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And straight to introducing the panel that we have for Newsroom this morning. And, my immediate left, we have Julie Masiga, who is a journalist and a colleague as well. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for
We
having
also
me.
have Susan Auma, who is a governance consultant. Good morning.
Good morning.
Last but not least, we have Patrick Gadara, communications consultant, also a cartoonist. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, let's start off with the headlines that we have this morning, and it is all to do with NASA. On the Standard, on the Star, and on the Nation. Gadara, do you think that is a subject or a topic that is worth three papers carrying as the headline at the moment? Is it such a big deal?
Let me just say I'm not surprised that the papers are carrying it, given the priority they've always given to the politics of things, rather than the issues on which our politics should be based. So in that sense, is it worth it being on the cover? I'm not sure that it is. I think there is a political story to be told about the fight between the various candidates for NASA's ticket, at least the presidential ticket. But I think beyond that, we really should have been debating what their proposals are and what their policies should be, rather than simply this fight for who's going to stand against Kenyatta. I think it's really divorced from what they actually want to do and any differences there might be.
Is it possible that maybe there is actually nothing that maybe there is to debate regarding the issues that they present as the principles, other than the fact that who is going to be the flag bearer?
But that would be very sad if there's nothing to debate, which means that the election is not really being run on the basis of something that they want to do, but only that they want to be president. I think it's really important that the media starts interrogating, what are the proposals that are being put forward? What are the policies that are being proposed? What does, if it's Raila, stand for? Is it any different from what Musalia stands for? In which case, then why should it matter which of the two actually stands? And I think to the extent that we keep getting drawn into the politics of things, we miss out that the election is really about the country looking at itself and figuring out where it wants to go, over the course of the next 5 or 10 years, And we just keep sort of fighting the fights of politicians, if you will, as opposed to what the interests of the people are.
All right. Julie, do you think, what's the bigger story here? Is it the presidential flag bearer or what NASA stands for? Such that, like Gadara says, maybe we should get to a point where it doesn't really matter whose face appears on that ballot paper as the presidential flag bearer when we have the content of what NASA actually stands for.
They do have a 7-point plan, which is more or less a photocopy of Jubilee's manifesto in 2013, but which we kind of glossed over as the media. We mentioned it once or twice, and we've never, like he said, interrogated it further. But they do have a plan. But we can't escape the fact that at this point we need to know who their flag bearer is, because we are going to an election, and that's one of the biggest things that is going to determine it. Obviously, we have to know who's standing on one side and who's standing on the other side. So I think for a time such as this, NASA, the focus on NASA is justified because they do need to come out and say who their flag bearer is. Beyond that, of course, it should be about the issues, but in Kenya we know that it kind of never is. It's always about the politics, and we're not going to change between now and 8th of August. So going forward, yes, we should be interrogating the issues, but then the media dropped the ball in the sense that they should have asked them what they meant by those 7 points, and it was very broad-ranging. Basically, to summarize, it was make Kenya a better place. Instead of
make Kenya great again.
Yes, great again.
I wonder where they got that.
I wonder where they got that. Well, we do know some of them did go to the States to observe, so maybe they took notes.
Yeah, but actually, if you look at the state and you compare when you had the primaries for the Republican nomination and the Democratic one, and how a lot of it was actually run on the basis of proposals that these people were making, whether it's tax proposals, etc.
Right.
They were being interrogated, and that entire process was about that, was about clarifying what their platform would be. Here it's only which face is going to be on the ballot.
And they even came out
and that's it.
Kalonzo came out and actually said it live on TV that it's about it's a power sharing agreement.
Right.
So the Kenyan people are nowhere in this equation at this point in time, and probably won't be after the 8th of August. So, but these are the things we have to start talking about so that we get to a point where
Let me hear what Susan has to say, then we can actually interrogate what you're saying, that Kenyans basically are not part of the equation when it comes to some of the power sharing deals. But Susan, your take on whether this is the big story, the flag bearer, or should we be actually looking at what NASA or even Jubilee stands for?
Yeah, first of all, I'll say this should not be a big story because there's nothing new here. I mean, just like Gadara, there's a lot of issues that can be discussed out of such a story and given a totally different angle. If I told the media is supposed to stand in for the people, it's supposed to be the eye of the people. For instance, talking about Raila, Musalia, Kalonzo, Wetangula, is the same story, unless you start now unpacking the issues that each of them stands for. All these four gentlemen have already launched a presidential bid. Wetangula launched his, Kalonzo launched his, Musalia launched his, Raila launched his. So in essence, they already have issues. They have their own manifestos. So those are some of the issues. And these are not new faces in Kenyan politics. These people have been there. Musalia has served as the vice president of this country. Raila has served as, so has Kalonzo, so has Raila has been the prime minister. So to me, and even Wetangula has held that very powerful docket of foreign affairs. So these people have got a history. So when it comes to leadership, if truly want to be telling Kenyan who is who, should Kenyans be looking out for? Okay, Kalonzo will say this is a power sharing, but what is in there for Kenyans? What are Kenyans going to get from there? So the story should not be NASA storm, I don't know what. And my question is, and still remains, why is media playing politics? Why is media playing along? I mean, why are you giving Kenyans a story that is not a story, but a story not new to them? And this one says that the media probably at this time, look at, there's several processes which are taking place, and one of the most significant process, even that will give effect to the NASA formation, is the nomination, is the primaries that are just about to kick from tomorrow. You should be telling Kenyans how prepared are these political parties, how prepared are NASA political parties, because without that process, then all this thing you're talking about, NASA sharing power, which power will they be sharing? So I think the media, again, has shown us that they're just looking for something that can make them sell, as opposed to really giving Kenyans the information that they require.
All right, Gadara, there's something Julie mentioned here, and that is the fact that looking at what has been proposed and what has been going on, and what Kalonzo said, that it's a power-sharing thing, where is the Kenyan in all this? Have we been able to articulate and give Kenyans, and not just with NASA, because we have a tendency sometimes to just concentrate on one, but it's the whole pool, not just with NASA, but even with Jubilee, what's in it for the Kenyan?
Well, to be quite honest, the way our system is set up is very rarely been about Kenyans. And in fact, in a very real sense, our politics has simply been about sharing power between a small elite and ignoring the interests of the others. And I think that's where we have failed in actually articulating that and going in and sort of taking that apart and explaining to Kenyans that you're actually being played here. You know. You're being given a few tribal kingpins, I think is the word that fits, to choose from, in essence. But they make their backroom deals, and in essence what they present for us is a fait accompli, which we are supposed to essentially rubber stamp or legitimize, When in the entire process, not just the run-up to the election or the campaigns, it's how we've carried on for the last 5 years. Since the last election, is that it has never really been a discussion or articulation of what are the needs of the country and then how are these actually being met by the politics of it. So we have it back to front, where the politics does not reflect what is required. In fact, if anything, we force Kenyans to sort of get into these cocoons where they discuss, should it be Raila, should it be NASA, should it be Jubilee, whatever, but divorced from what those people are actually proposing, what those candidates are actually proposing to do in order to fix the problems that you have, which is what should be the entire purpose of government.
Julie, do you think Kenyans care more about who is going to be the flag bearer or what is in it for them? Could it be that they actually, I mean, Gadara has mentioned that this could be a way of selling the newspaper. I think it was Susan, I'm not sure who it was. But could it be that Kenyans actually enjoy that more? And maybe we're giving them that for the sake of sales?
I actually think Kenyans enjoy that more, for one, reading about NASA Joho Wars or NASA Flag Bearer Manenos. And also, they don't really, the papers give Kenyans what they want. For example, when you talk about corruption, people are corrupt from top to bottom, bottom to top. So you can't really separate the two. So when a Kenyan complains about corruption, they're essentially complaining about themselves because that's their way of life. In terms of politics...
No.
Yes.
No way,
On your right to work, how many instances of corruption do you encounter? Where you could choose the rule of law, but you always choose the shortcut. Let me just make a blanket statement about that.
Hang on, let her finish. Let her finish. Yeah.
So that in the sense that when you're giving them politics, when the papers report on politics, it's because they understand that's what people want to read about. And it's proven because people actually do buy the paper and continue to buy the paper, even though you have a NASA headline 5 days in a week. For example, yesterday, all the papers had the same headline about Jubilee's portal. Magical
Which will
portal.
come to in just a bit.
Where you go through and things magically become better. But every paper covered that story, and people bought those papers because they were interested to know about the political aspects of what this PR government is talking about this time, or whatever it is that it was, they were interested to know. So my opinion, honestly, is that Kenyans are not really interested in the issues when it comes to what's on the news.
What's on the news?
Yes.
Susan, you beg to differ?
Yeah, I differ because if you look at the role of the media in the society, and that's the reason why it's called the fourth estate. It's supposed to inform, it's supposed to educate, it's supposed actually to set even the agenda, the prevailing agenda, even for the people. So when you're going to depend on those very, very people that you're supposed to shape even their thinking, their opinion, and say, what do they enjoy? Have you ever done a study that has shown that Kenyans love politics? So you keep on feeding them.
You don't have to do a study because people buy papers and continue to buy papers.
No, let me just ask you, Julie.
And continue
if let's say today we didn't have such kind of headlines, people won't buy paper?
They might not buy as much as they... For example...
So I think the media, much as Kenya are outside there yearning for news, yearning for something, it's again incumbent of the media to directly give Kenyans what? The news that can be...
There's a separation between giving them what they want and what they need. What we need is have a discussion about the issues.
Yeah, but you see, what is the media? You are contradicting yourself.
I'm not.
I don't think, even if Kenya want to have such kind of news, should be their need. So what is the role of the media? Then we are negating the role of the media in shaping the opinions of these Kenyans. We are keeping Kenyans watched to NASA is breaking, NASA is doing ABCD, and there are several other news which are taking place that could be of development to Kenyans, which are not telling them, and then we say we are giving Kenyans what they want. No, that's conning Kenyans.
Let me hear from Gadara.
Two things. First, when you speak of the role of the press, I think the role of the media is to make public interest interesting, is to actually explain to people what is important, not simply to play to the gallery. If you remember your history, in Rome, when Caesar always had problems, he'd have something called the circus, where he'd bring all these gladiators and give the people a show and they'd applaud him for it. That's what our media does. In essence, we are given a show, And all these people over here who we are told are the ones fighting and everything are the very people who are stealing from us, are the very people whose policies are diminishing this country. But we don't get to discuss that because we are given the politics show. And that's what we become invested
in. The circus.
It's a circus, that's all it is. The second thing is, to go to what she said about corruption. It's true, lots of people pay bribes. I mean, in 2014, the bribery index showed that the average person in Nairobi pays 16 bribes in a month. But if you look at the nature of those bribes, lots of them are simply extortion. You are on the road, you're stopped, it's not necessarily you've done anything wrong, but because you don't want to go through the rigmarole that's there.
You always have the option to do the right thing.
And this is the thing is, if you do the right thing, there's a cost to doing the right thing. And what our system does, it puts up that cost so high so that you will pay the bribe. It is extortion. In fact, read the 2014 bribery index, that's what they say. It is an actually extortion. The vast majority, 75% of people who pay bribes are not paying bribes to circumvent the system. What they're doing is they're paying bribes to get a service that they're actually entitled to, that they shouldn't be paying.
So on that note, Gadara, is it that Kenyans don't know they're entitled to that? And that's what Julie is saying. You have the choice to make the right decision and say, look, yes, there is a cost of corruption, but we want our politicians to pay that cost. But are we willing to pay the same cost?
But here's the thing is, the cost isn't go to court. The cost is you go to court and we will keep you there for, let's say, 8 hours in your day. You know, we will have 1 second where you'll stand up, you'll be asked guilty, not guilty.
But
then you'll be hit.
Let me finish.
Actually, the court system is a revenue collection exercise. It is not about justice.
So are you saying that we should abandon the court system altogether?
No. What I'm saying is reform the court system. What we are doing is we are saying the problem is Kenyans are corrupt. It is not. The problem, Kenyans are being extorted by a system that was created specifically to take from them. The reason why you hear traffic cops refuse to get off the streets, it's not because they are so publicly minded. It's because they know what they get when they're on
So let's bring this back to context, because we'll end up getting into the politics of it again, which you're saying that we should not as media. But now, have we not done our job in terms of highlighting, even when it comes to corruption, what our responsibility is as residents of Kenya or citizens of Kenya?
Again, and this is where I go back to what she said, and I think it highlights what the problem is with how the media, for example, reports corruption. Is you put together the victim and the person committing the corruption as if they are one thing. You know, so that we are taught by Kenya, by our press and by what our politicians say, that the problem is cultural. Let us teach our class 4s how not to be corrupt, as if it is the class 4s who are stealing. If you actually look at the people who steal from everybody else, it's not actually many Kenyans. You know, it's a section of Kenyans, almost all of them in this thing we call government.
I think the problem
employed
is
by it and kept there by it. And that's the thing, is until we start understanding the problem isn't me and Gitonga sitting here. The problem is that structure we call governance.
Yes,
that is what is stealing from us. And then we focus on that to change it. You don't change that by telling the guy in class 4 not to steal.
But
He's not the one stealing.
That guy who's stealing was once in class 4, and nobody told him that that's not the way life is supposed to be.
Actually, not true. A lot of these guys already know stealing is bad.
Yes, but the thing is,
you're right about
the system. The thing is, anybody who gets into that system, most people become corrupt because of the system. Which means any Kenyan who gets there might likely do the same thing, which still means
the thing
it's a
is,
cultural
but the problem isn't the Kenyan. The problem is the system. Fix the system.
Fix the people.
Okay, but how do you fix the system? The system is run by people. It's like let me give you an example, Gadara. We have IFMIS, which is supposed to be foolproof.
Right.
But isn't it people that actually go and now succumb to that same system?
Good, fantastic. You give the example of IFMIS. When NYS happened, and we knew there was a problem with IFMIS, you know, did we go back and ask what is that problem and fix it?
It's the people.
You know, the problem wasn't the people. IFMIS is set out. You know, that's why it appears. Let me finish. That's why it appears again in Afia House. You know, we are not fixing the problem. We are sitting back and saying, oh, let us hope all these guys will be nice guys and not steal. Not actually fix the system so that it incentivizes.
Let me hear from Susan. I want us to move on to something else, but let's close on that.
Just let's get back to this issue, and why I still blame the media, and why I still disagree with her, is that if we use the example of corruption, today you will highlight corruption and say so and so have been found to be corrupt or ABCD, and then tomorrow, this person is a presidential candidate, this person is vying for ABCD. And all
guess
of a
what? They still
suddenly,
get
The
elected.
you
people will
give
vote
this.
for him.
No,
They still
listen,
get elected.
not really. Who brings these people is the media and say so and so. Like, let me just mention a name. For instance, we've had the issue of you talked about if Miss NYS comes into that. Anway Guru, blah, blah. And today, if you are to serialize a story on who is vying in Nyandarua, believe me not, the picture of Anway Guru will come up popping. So what are you telling Kenyans?
Kirinyaga.
You say so and so is corrupt. At the same time, you sanitize these people, you clean
But
them,
how have we
and you give it
sanitized
to the
them?
people.
And all
the
we-
news
all
she's
we did-
running
No,
for
no,
governor.
no. What you're saying, beyond just reporting, you need to be giving also an analysis. How will you make
There
a
have
common
been
Kenyan?
countless analysis
Let me.
about
What
Waiguru's
will you tell a Kenyan who has just turned 18?
Could I ask?
On what to look out for in a leader. If you do not, if every time you are contradicting yourself.
You're contradicting yourself in the sense that who is it that had published the NYS story and the leaders of the NYS
Once you
scam?
give her the NYS story,
I mean, you brought all these stories.
Yes, they're there in the media.
The thing is, a few months ago, we were treated to these NYS, everything. But at the same time, it's MU people who are now profiling these leaders who are
No,
even
we
mentioned.
can't stop
say
them
that.
from. If somebody goes for office, the best we can do is say, look,
But
Susan is going for office.
must you make it a banner headline? Don't we have other stories?
It can be a banner headline
you want
based
to
on the
say
fact
the
that
paper is
this
full
is the
of
same
stories.
person.
No.
Anyway,
Must you make it a
Gadara, I want
banner
us to move on.
headline?
But
Yeah, but very quickly, I just wanted to ask, would any of you say that the people who were arrested during Usalama Watch, if you remember, in Isili, that they simply should have gone through the process and not paid the bribe, that it was not extortion that was happening?
No, there are clear cases
Obviously,
of extortion.
no,
Gadara,
the
but
point is that extortion is happening every day. Watch Kanjo Kingdom, which KTN ran. That is extortion.
My point
you know,
is this.
You
My
can't
point is this,
simply
that-
say, oh, don't pay.
No, the default position for many Kenyans, myself included, on occasion, is to take the short route. So if you're stopped by a cop and you know you were speeding,
I would say this,
you'd
the
rather not go to
default
traffic
position
court.
for any person, in any society, is to take the short route, is to take the easier route. That is the default. The reason we have laws, is that to
But those laws have to be enforced.
Let me finish. Just one last thing. We pay the police. We pay them a salary, we give them a job to enforce the law.
Right.
They can't come back and say that because that guy is breaking the law, I can't do my job. That's the first thing. Then secondly, when they invent offenses, when they go and they shika
Invent
you and they
offenses.
make it, which actually they do,
Okay.
and that was actually in the reported, when they put you through a system, when they create, the guys who run government, create a system that makes it onerously difficult for you to actually do the right thing, they are incentivizing you to do the wrong one.
All right.
Exactly.
I want us to move
And
on
that's
to
the
something
thing, and
else.
that's where the corruption
and I
comes
think
from.
we'll end up now talking about corruption as a
Corruption as
subject,
opposed to-
and that's not what we want to do here. Let's talk about the portal. And this is the portal that was launched not too long ago by
actually a
His Excellency
discussion
the
of
President
corruption.
and the Deputy President. But for those of us who maybe missed out on what was happening, here are just some of the comments that were made during the launch of this portal. And hopefully we'll also try and see whether we can log into it and see what really is there. And then we can discuss that in terms of how it has been reported. But here are some of the comments of what was made during the launch of the portal.
We are proud of our record.
So to those who say that we are over-borrowing, I tell them the only reason you should be concerned about the level of borrowing is if that borrowing was being used and utilized for consumption or for recurrent expenditure. Give us a chance to complete this transformational journey. Be patient.
All right, so the president there saying that we must be patient. And Gadara, I can see you're rather amused by this. I don't know whether we missed the truth, but yeah, fill us in.
No, one of the funny things that I had over there was the president saying that we should only be concerned if borrowing is being done for a recurrent expenditure, ETC, which is exactly what they use the Eurobond for, and at least the bits that we know they use, So there is a problem there, and I'm saying we need to interrogate what they say. This portal, when I was going through it yesterday, and you find some fairly amazing things. There is a video by where the president is being interviewed, and he speaks and he says about how we should always, we should remember where we've come from. But yet this is the same guy who was essentially shelved the TJRC report, which does tell us where we have come from. You know, and it's a real rambling interview. You guys should watch it and listen to it and interrogate it, you know, because he keeps sort of sidelining things and contradicting himself, because at the very end he says, oh, we should actually forget where we've come from and simply focus
Okay,
on the stuff.
and maybe for the benefit.
And then the other thing, I mean, I'm saying, go to the portal, you know, have a look at it, but be a bit skeptical about what you're being told.
Okay,
You know,
let me just pause you a bit, Gadara, because I want us to actually go to the portal and see what it has, and so that we're not just talking about something that is abstract, but it is there. So Michelle, or rather from whether we can maybe try and log into the portal and see what exactly we get from the portal and how it works, and what we should expect to see there, because according to the president and the deputy president, well, this is basically Jubilee putting in the open what exactly they have done. It's a little bit like their scorecard. And well, according to what the president said, he said that you can go onto the portal, log into it, see what Jubilee has done. If you don't believe what is on the portal, go to the ground. So,
Really?
All right, Mike, so we have the portal here, and just to get Kenyans to log on to it. So it is www.delivery.co.ke if you want to log on to that portal, www.delivery.co.ke. And the portal here, the journey of transformation, President's Delivery Unit. And it's very, very... what would I say? It has a lot of information. So 12 flagship programs is what Jubilee was going with across 47 counties and through 21 ministries. So what we have on the screen right now, anytime you click on a flagship program, it shows you what the government has done. But look at the map there. It gives you an opportunity to click on your particular county and take a look at the development programs that have been taken place in the several counties. Maybe you could just select one of the counties there. There you go. So it gives you an option of which county to select. And there we go. That is one of the counties. What county is that? That is Samburu County. So in Samburu County, they also to give you the 12 flagship programs and how they have developed in Samburu County. So in terms of roads, in terms of health facilities, there you go. So in Samburu County, in terms of programs, education programs. So a lot is going on in this. So Kenyans can take a look at their specific counties, take a look at whatever projects have been done in the counties and in terms of food security. But when you take a look at this portal, most of the programs are still being done. They're not completed. Many of them, you know, it's continuing, still going on. Then on the screen there, we also have the ministry milestones. So they have the milestones of all the 21 ministries, what the cabinet secretaries have been doing. You also have an opportunity to click on every single ministry and also see what they have done. But like I mentioned, again, in most of the ministries, most of the projects have not been completed. It's something that is ongoing. And this is why many people are saying that this may be a campaign tool for the Jubilee administration, sort of saying, we have started these projects, but we have not finished them, so re-elect us so we can come back and finish these projects. So do log on to that portal, www.delivery.co.ke.
All right, let me come to you, Susan. And just like Michelle has mentioned, maybe those projects are not done. Have we gone to the ground and actually verified?
Actually, I would have asked Michelle to click Busia County. I can be able to verify whether those projects have been done or not. But they have not been done. I mean, even from their portal. Well, I must first of all congratulate them for the system, because now we are becoming techno-savvy. We can be able to click and this improves even the oversight.
But how many people can be able to click and use this portal?
I'm just saying, for those who can, at least we must appreciate for what they have done now. And the other good thing is that now we're able to see that they've just been talking, all that are there. In fact, what we need to know, at what stage are those projects in? It could just be at a design stage. For instance, I know where I come from.
Many of them are the procurement stage.
Like I know a procurement stage.
The problem in itself.
For 5 years, you've been procuring. Like I know where I come from Busia. There's one road that is supposed to be tarmacked, Malaba Busia Road. Just click there. I want to see at what stage is in there, because
it's ongoing.
And you've been to the ground, you've verified where.
I'm on the ground. I've used it even yesterday. So
So is it?
But
no. It's not be done. When he came
Okay,
to launch
so
the tractor, this is what happened.
So what road are you talking about?
Malaba Busia Highway. Malaba Busia Highway.
It's actually not even here. I mean,
Okay, what I want us to concentrate on here, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that as the media, here we are, we've been given a portal by the president and the deputy president, or let's say by Jubilee government. Have we just reported he said, she said, and left it there, as opposed to now actually saying, this is what they're saying. This is what is on the ground. Kenyans, don't be conned, or it is a very good initiative.
I think they did try to do analysis in the inside pages. The headlines, of course, were the same headline across the board. But the curious thing is that just a while ago, the government said that they're not advertising in local newspapers. And they were going to put all their propaganda, etc., in MyGov. But then yesterday, weirdly,
we pick up the same story.
pick up the same story and everybody runs with it. So I think the media is going behind the veil and trying to explain to people. For example, the Standard, even on the front page, listed the 12 things that they said that they were going to do, the health, the ICT, the famous SGR. They tried to break the issues down for people. Then, of course, Raila came out and gave his other side of the story, which the press also covered and compared and contrasted. So I really don't think we've dropped the ball in terms of explaining to people that you need to ask questions about what you're being told at this point in time, especially because there's an election in August.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think two things. First, I didn't see the Standard story yesterday, but if they did indeed go back and say this is what we were promised in 2013, and this is what they're saying they've delivered, and compare the two, then that's a good step, But I still think that we need to go step by step into the various claims that are being made inside the portal. Don't forget, this portal is being put up with your money. This is not a Jubilee portal. It's a government portal. And it's a government making certain claims about how it has spent your cash. So what we need to do is to go through it step by step. So one of the things I noticed yesterday in my cursory sort of going through it was this claim about security and how they have provided 3 helicopters. They didn't say specifically to who, whether it's to the police or to the army, but assuming it's to the police. You remember last year, we had this story of the helicopters actually crashing and about the state of those helicopters, and actually procured 4. And the question is it enough simply that they have bought helicopters, or should we actually be looking at the state of these helicopters, the cost, etc.? When they talk about the vehicles that they have purchased that are supposed to be these armored vehicles that are supposed to enhance the police capability, why is it that the police are rarely seen actually in them, in the counties where they're supposed to be in them, when Land Cruisers are being blown up by terrorists? These guys are never in armored vehicles, So what has actually happened to them? And these are the sort of things that I would want our media to go and verify and check out, so that when the government sort of starts beating its breast and say, well, this is what we have achieved, then you can actually say, in reality, this is what is there. And if it is what they are saying it is, then fine and good. But if it isn't, then we should be asking, what then happened to our money? Which is being. The final thing I will say is I am quite discomfited by this thing of using state resources essentially to campaign, which is what they are doing with the portal. This should have been there from the very beginning, when they started, so that we could track progress upon the various
projects that
they are doing. If you remember, we've got now a law that I think was activated from the beginning of this year, the Access to Information Act. That requires all government departments essentially to put up on their website the details of any contracts they get into, who they've contracted, amounts, what's supposed to be done with that cash. Till today, none of them is doing it. We are being given a portal.
Okay.
So that's a problem.
First, Michael, what I wanted to say is the media needs to go to the ground. Like they say, if you can't believe it,
if you don't believe what's on the portal, go to the ground.
Go to the ground. So we need to have media going to the ground and giving us real stories. Secondly, when you talk about the achievements, please don't confuse the achievement by the county government. We have the specific functions that were supposed to be carried out by the national government, of which I think is under the President Uhuru and William Ruto. And then we have the functions for the county government. So you go to a county, you see it's glittering, and you think this is national government. No. So let's also try to know there is that difference. Thirdly, everything that has gone good, I've heard Jubilee saying it's us. The other day, the president went to Kisii region, and he said, look here,
Even
I've employed for you your son. And you kind of wonder, I mean, is Chief Justice, was he a Jubilee project or what? Because we need to be able to see from what they just want to ride on and what exactly they were supposed to do. But I still feel the idea of the portal, even though it's going to, we need to make value of it, because as you said, it's our taxpayers' money that is going to sustain it. But again, let's use it to try and question some of these claims. And let this now help this discussion on who is likely to be the flag, not really the flag bearer, the next president, because for Jubilee they already have the flag bearer. So the thing is, who Kenyans can? Let's lay it bare for Kenyans to see.
Before you move away from this conversation, it's important that, as Gadara says, Kenyans go out and verify these projects, because when we take a look at education, for example, in 2013, there was 288,000 teachers in Kenya. The Jubilee government promised they're going to employ 40,000 teachers. I don't know if that was annually or over the 5 years. But the current status, they're saying now we have 299,000 teachers. That is only an addition of 10,000 teachers. So the question is, yes, they have done something, but have they fulfilled the promises that they made to Kenyans?
No, they haven't. And actually, on that score, you might also consider, when you're reading that, to compare it with the statements that government itself has been making. For example, the statements that were proven to be erroneous that Kenyatta made during the State of the Nation address about how many, for example, police they had employed, which turned out to be a lie. You know, we do know we haven't achieved the UN numbers that he was claiming. So you need to, when you're reading that, keep that in mind and go and check up on their other statements. Then you will find out that there's quite a lot that is put out on one forum that says something very different from what they say on a different forum.
All right, I want us now to move on, and this is because, as you can see, even our discussion today has mainly revolved around politics. And the question here now is, when it comes to other stories, there's a lot more that's happening, human interest stories. Do we ignore other things that are happening in the country at the expense of politics? And maybe let me highlight and use an example that we had a story done by Hamza Yusuf, and this was a very moving story. I mean, it created a lot of debate and a lot of response, and we'll just play a bit of it, then we'll talk to him briefly, then also just come back to you and find out, do we sometimes concentrate so much on politics and actually ignore anything else that is happening? But this is a snippet of the story that was run on KTN News, and this is by Hamza Yusuf.
From a distance, she appears to be a child living another ordinary day in Wajir. But for this 10-year-old girl, life has been far from ordinary. When she was 6 years old, she was defiled by a 52-year-old man, a close neighbor, who will conceal her identity and refer her as Rhoda, not her real name. The wounds are still too raw. It's not a story that she's ready to tell. Her older sister lingers around with a protective glare. The girls were out playing that day when the rapists attacked Rhoda, forcing her sister to watch silently and then fleeing.
All right, and that's Tears Unseen, a story that ran on KTN News, done by Hamza Yusuf. And now we have Hamza on phone. Good morning, Hamza. First of all, just to congratulate you on that well-told story. But secondly, what was the inspiration behind it? Why did you do that particular story at this time?
Well, thank you, Gitonga. To begin with, we made this innocent child about 2 to 3 weeks ago. 7 several kilometers away from our Wajir town, that is Mokoror. And we are first informed by the women representative of Wajir, Fatuma Ibrahim, who also tried to convince that young child to overcome the condition, by taking her to another county or to, take her to another place like Nairobi. But the girl refused. Probably to me, it's because what she went through was really horrific. If I may take you back a little bit, is that the incident of the defilement happened back 2014, when a 52-year-old man attacked this young lady while playing with her sister. And according to them, this is the person who, is well known to them, a close neighbor, someone who most of the time, they refer to him as dad or father. But what transpired that day, was an incident that completely, a tragedy that completely changed, the life of this young girl and also the family. Yes, Gitonga, the law took, its course, and the culprit of the rapist was arrested 50 years.
All right. Sorry to cut you short. It's just trying to manage time. What has the response been to the story?
Come again, Gitonga?
What has the response been to the story? What response have you received after running the story?
Okay, fine. There's a very positive impact there because many people are coming up trying to contribute, and they're saying they will going to build for them Mama Nyata, and there's a very, very positive impact. They might go out of that situation soon, as I was promised by some, religious leaders, organizations. Quite positive impact, Gitoga.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hamza, for joining us this morning. And maybe just to come back to the panel, because I see time is not on our side. The response was overwhelming, basically, after running that particular story. Have we neglected such stories, and just put politics? Should that be a story that maybe should have even been on a headline at some point? Julie?
For sure. Actually, I agree with Gadara now when he says that we're too focused on the politics of the day and the politics of general election is coming up and all that stuff. And we forget social justice and social injustice, which is what is holding this. Basically, the microcosm of our society is how we relate and what happens to people on a day-to-day basis. And we're kind of focusing on an elite, a ruling elite, at the expense of millions and millions of Kenyans, which is actually a flaw for the media. We should expand. And actually, so the other day, the drama festivals are also going on.
Right.
At the currently or are about to start, and nobody has mentioned.
They are going on, actually.
They're going anything apart from NASA and Jubilee.
Yeah, sure.
So I do think we need to focus on the people of Kenya also and the things that they are going through, the cost of living, their health issues, these kind of domestic and defilement issues. Because if you read the paper, they're like probably 4 or 5 defilement briefs that are published every single day.
There's somebody who killed his wife yesterday because they didn't bring ugali on time. I mean, there's all sorts of things happening.
There's all sorts of things happening, but we kind of like gloss over them because we're focused on flag bearers and all that stuff.
Susan, do you think that maybe it's because of selling the newspapers that we concentrate on politics as opposed to human interest stories that people would really be moved to even do something about?
Yeah, first of all, I want to just give a big thank you to Hamza bringing out such kind of stories, because ideally this should be the issues. Even when you're talking about politics, this should be some of the issues. The kind of manifestos that all these parties are throwing around, we should be interrogating and see what do you have in there for social justice, what do you have there for children's rights, what do you have there for youth empowerment, because people just talk, we are going to do ABCD, but you have this thing happening behind the scenes. And I must just say this is just one of the million stories of such nature, issues taking place across our country, because we focused on power, who is defending power, who is acquiring power. We don't care about what does that power entail. And I think it's high time now, when we say the role of the media is now to, when you are unpacking the manifesto of these people, now you start going back, look, what will be your policy? What will be your response in as far as such an issue is concerned? So I think there then will be effecting a debate that is meaningful. And Kenyans can start actually, whenever we talk about flag bearer, they will be able to tell, really, this person has got whatever his proposal has got the interest of the people. So I think, again, there the media has failed.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what she just said. That
the media has failed.
Well, but it's about how they failed. I think the reason, the problem I have when you've got all this talk of NASA and stuff is it is divorced from the reality of people living, so that the politics is not about solving people's problems. I think a story such as that, which is fine, needs to go forth and expound on what the failures have been. Well, how has society, how has government failed this young lady, this young girl, you know? So that when we say we've had a good response, and all that response is simply people on social media or some NGOs that want to help, my question is, how is government responding? You know, so that what failed there and how is that being fixed? You know, these are sort of questions that people who are running for power should be asked. You know, what would you do in this case to prevent this happening? How do they analyze what the problem is? So that then how does then fit into whatever manifesto they give us? How will that manifesto actually protect our order? And that was the problem, and that's, I think, the biggest problem with how our media in general reports, is things are reported as if they are divorced from the reality of the people living them.
And I guess the question we should be asking ourselves also, when we talk about politics, isn't this a political issue?
Precisely. That's
It's a
my entire
political
point.
issue.
It should be a political issue. It should be the basis of our politics.
Yeah.
But in a very large extent, it is not. It is not the people's experience.
So what we need to do is change our perspective of politics. It's not just about who is going to be a flag bearer or who is the next president.
It is
but should
why
be
the politics.
content.
Why
You
they
know,
need to be there.
if you think about it, I mean, the Nation has on its front page also that we've got a milk shortage.
Right.
You know.
Exactly.
Again, my question is, this is a regular thing. Every time we have drought, we get shortages of milk. You know, yet we've got one of the biggest dairy herds in Africa. In fact, we've got more dairy cows than South Africa has. You know, 5 times more, but they make 10 times
of
more
time, I
than
want
we
to-
do. So we need to be asking ourselves, where are the policy failures that mean we
Exactly.
cannot
We end up in this rat race
maintain
every single
ourselves?
time. Because of time, I want to bring in Michelle with some response before we close. Michelle.
All right, a lot of comments coming in on social media. With regard to Hamza's story, you have Abdullahi here saying, now you see where you media get it wrong. Stories like this of Hamza Yusuf were not on the daily paper headlines. Imagine the impact the story could make if it was on the standard paper headline. But Catherine Wanjohi says, the media is doing well. Lately, I can see the struggle to stay on facts and be balanced. And then on the issue of the government, the portal by the Jubilee administration, we have Abdullahi here still saying, the Malaba Busia Road saw tractors during the president's visit to start construction, but after leaving, the tractors left. So many thanks for interacting with us on social media. This has been our Newsroom Conversation.